All right, hello and welcome to the Miracle Morning for Network Marketers audio series / podcast, depending on where you might be finding this information and this content at the moment. My name is Pat Petrini. I'm the co-author of the #1 best-selling book, The Miracle Morning for Network Marketers. And in creating this book, we reached out to some of the very top network marketers in the world, and we interviewed them, some of the top performers, both people that have been around the network marketing world for years and even decades, as well as people that are fairly newcomers that have just been around for the last few years, but have had extreme success in those just those last few years. And we reached out, we interviewed them. That's what this series is all about. You're going to hear interviews from a number of different people. And in these interviews, we dive into not only their tips, strategies, techniques, things that have really accelerated their business, but also, and of course this was sort of the thesis, the theme of the book is the Miracle Morning for Network Marketers. We delve into their morning routines and their daily rituals, things that they consider to be critical for success that are really important for them to do every single day. And what we found, the whole concept of the Miracle Morning is that not every successful person does all of these different things every day, but just about every successful person does some of these things every day, has some of these daily rituals, oftentimes morning rituals, and so we dive into that in this audio series. Now, if you're not familiar with the book, you can check out the book, of course, at Amazon. Just go to Amazon and search for The Miracle Morning for Network Marketers. You'll find it right there. And then, of course, you can also go to our website. You may be listening to this recording right there on our website, but if you're not, if you're finding it somewhere else, go to tmm4networkmarketers.com. That's TMM, like the Miracle Morning, for FOR, networkmarketers.com. Again, my name is Pat Petrini. I hope you're going to enjoy this interview. I know you're going to enjoy this interview. You might want to have a pen and paper handy, and on with the show. Thanks a lot.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for tuning in to our interview today. This is Pat Petrini, and I am really excited to share this interview with everybody. I'm really honored to have the one and only Cindy Samuelson on the line here. Because Cindy has actually been a really huge mentor in my life and somebody that I've had the honor of working closely with over the last number of years, and we've traveled together, and it's just an amazing person. So I think it's going to be a great interview with some great content. So Cindy, again, thanks so much for being on this call here.
Oh, Pat, thank you so much. I'm so honored and so tickled, and you're like part of our family, and so there is no way in the world that I wouldn't be here with you today. So I've been looking forward to it too. So let's get at it. What are we talking about today?
Well, so Cindy lives down here in Phoenix. She lives down here in Phoenix, same place that Emily and I live. And how long have we worked together now? Maybe.
Well, Pat, you've been part of my life since 2003.
Yeah.
And I just can't imagine life without you. And
well, likewise.
It's been a wonderful journey. So yeah, it's been more than 10 years now.
And I had asked you before we had jumped on this call if you could kind of estimate your career sales, to say that you've been around this industry for a while or you've had an accomplished professional career would be a pretty dramatic understatement. You had estimated your career sales at over $300 million over the years, and so I wanted to ask you if you could maybe walk us through, kind of a synopsis of your career, kind of how you got started in sales and then direct sales and then into network marketing.
Well, Pat, that was an interesting question that you gave me because I hadn't thought about it for a long time. But the reality is that I was actually a little conservative in those numbers because I didn't want to overstate it. But
sure.
And I looked at it and I thought, well, $300 million is pretty good, though, right? That's
pretty good.
It's not too bad. But let me just share with you that my background is that I love my mom, and I grew up here in Phoenix, Arizona. I moved here when I was 11, and my mom was a single parent of 5 children, and it was not the easiest of life. She's an amazing woman, and I love her. But I wanted to honor her by being, happily married. My mom wasn't. I wanted to be able to be a stay-at-home mom. My mom couldn't be. If there was going to be food on the table, Mom had to work on an assembly line. And So we were pretty much latchkey kids, and we were poor. And I didn't want that. I wanted a better life. And so I became, a happily married woman. I chose my spouse wisely. We've been married 32 years. I love him, love him, love him. We had a wonderful family. I haven't had a job outside my home since 1982 when we got married, and I've earned millions of dollars working from home. And I pinch myself every day. I do. I didn't have to sacrifice my children at the altar to my career. I don't have a resume, Pat. I didn't finish college, and I didn't have, corner offices in corporate America. I just was a mom. And I got introduced to the home-based business opportunity. So my career started in 1983, just shortly after I got married, a few months after I got married. I started with Mary Kay Cosmetics. And so I learned how to work from home from an incredible woman. And Mary Kay was. I mean, that's a $3.5 billion a year company today. It's 50 years old now. And I started with Mary Kay when the company was 20. And so I learned the disciplines to work from home. I learned God first, family second, career third. And not 33rd, but third. And so I earned a couple cars. And that was it. But I left, and it was pretty much me. If I did a skincare class, I made money, and it worked. And I could work around my children's schedule, and my husband could stay home with them and father on the evenings that I had evening appointments and everything. So we had a really good program there, but there wasn't enough money in it. And I left for a better compensation plan, networking. And so my first company, I earned $500,000. In 7 years. I worked really hard. I had great mentorship. I had great teachers that were invested in my success, and I was a willing student. And so if it's 5% of sales, if $500,000 represents 5% of sales, you can see what my income was there, right?
Yep.
And so that was 5, because that was a 5% plan on 5 levels, and so I made $500,000. And my next company, Pat, I spent 7 years with that company. I spent 5 years with Mary Kay, 7 with my next company. I spent 9 years with my third company. So I'm not a jumper. I mean, I stick it out, and I learned to make it work and make money. I earned $3.2 million in commissions with that company. And we were doing about $200 million a year in sales, and our team represented about 90% of the business, 85 to 90% of the sales per year. So I did kind of underestimate my team, and that was a fun experience. And then I spent 6 years with another company, and which I had the pleasure of having you and working with you in that company.
Yep.
And we had a great time, right? I earned
we did.
About 8.
Yep.
Yeah. And you were a good student, I have to tell you. All right. So it was a joy working with you there, and about $850,000 in royalties for that team, and that was about a 6% plan, I think, somewhere in there, 7%. So that's my track record. That's how I got started, why I got started, and that's pretty much my entire career. I did start a new venture about 2 years ago, a company that I'm very, very excited about. And this is not a plug for my company, but I absolutely know it's going to be massively successful. And we're already about $600,000 or $700,000 a year in sales with the team, and we're just getting started. It's really a totally different deal. So, but anyway, that's my program.
So one of the things I wanted to ask you about is, because you have had an extensive career, like you said, you've been with multiple companies, but you stuck it out. Like you're like you said, you're not a jumper. You're not somebody who's been here 6 months and here 8 months and here. And things like that. You had extensive careers in each of these places that you've chosen to be part of. So one of the things that I wanted to ask you. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, so I had asked you a little bit. You had said one of the things that you had written down was that you're quick to make decisions and slow to change, which I love that. But one thing I did want to ask you is that I think is kind of a tough decision for people to make sometimes is there have been times that you found yourself where you didn't feel like you were in the best place anymore. Mm-hmm. It was no longer the right place for you. So how do you draw that line? Like how do you decide when it's time to move on or when you need to like try to step it up and put more of yourself into it? Or
oh my gosh, Pat, what a beautiful question. And oh, how excited I am to answer that for you, because it's part of my philosophy that has made all the difference in how my career has turned out. And so let me share with you where I learned two major lessons that I learned. All right. I've always been a fantastic student because I wanted to become a great leader, and you must be a great follower and a great student before you can become a great teacher and a great leader. And so Mary Kay taught me that you never quit at the bottom. You always quit at the top, and that you can't make an evaluation if it's not going to work for you if you don't give a venture a minimum of 3 years. So I've never invested less than 3 years in a venture because I don't know if I've got anything good until I've given it 3 years, because you can't become profitable in standard business. If you opened a store, if you opened a Hallmark store in a mall, they tell you in the prospectus it'll be 5 years before you earn a profit. 5 years. So you can't make a decision of whether or not a program's going to work until you've got at least 3 years in it. That was the rule of thumb I got from Mary Kay. So I learned never to quit unless I had at least 3 years, and never to quit at the bottom, because at the bottom you don't have clear vision, right? You don't see anything. All you see, if you're really deep in it, you're in the mud, you're in the bottom, you can't see past the mud, let alone be able to have the clarity and the vision to be able to see the future. So I never quit at the bottom. I know I do everything in my power to make sure that I've done everything I can to make my business successful. And then when I get to the top, like for instance, Mary Kay, I had a couple of cars, I had a good team, I had what would be considered success. I know that I worked hard. I mean, I was doing a skincare class. I was like 8.5 months pregnant, right? Because that was serious to me. I was, I was in business, and it was important to me. And so I know that I gave it my best, and I looked at the top, and I thought, I've given it my best. I have 5 years, and this isn't what I was looking for. I'm not happy, and I must go where I'm happier than this, because this is the best it's going to be. And I know that I've given my best. I have the clear vision to go to the next venture. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So I guess
I've had companies. Okay, all right. Because this is really exciting to me that you would ask that, because I've stood in my next company that I went to that I made $500,000 in. I was a novice pretty much in that compensation plan, and I was 6 years into that 7-year plan, and I made it to the top. Now, what was interesting is I was actually standing in the highest building in Montreal. They were having an event in Montreal, and I'd given it my very best, and I was in a formal gown, and I was looking out over the beautiful city of Montreal, and it was a perfect evening for leaders, and my husband and I were standing by the window, and I looked at my husband, and I said, I'm not happy. This is not where I belong. And I was at the top of my income.
Yeah.
And I chose another company, right? So I never leave at the bottom. I always leave at the top, and I never leave unless I have at least 3 great years in it. And the shortest I've ever been with a venture was 3 years, ever. I mean, That's the shortest, right? And so that's my MO. That's how I know.
I love it, because I think that's a tough decision for anybody to make. It's good to hear kind of your insights there. And so sort of a follow-up. Go ahead.
When you're standing on the mountain, you have clear vision. And so one of my mentors taught me that, and because another mentor backed that up about standing on the top, which is why I got my pilot's license, because one of my mentors was a phenomenal pilot. And, you know, he said from the air, you have the ability to see even higher than a mountain. And so that's the visualization I got. And that's why I got my private pilot's license, so I could actually see from the top, as from 35,000 feet rather than from the bottom, right? So that's all an analogy for my life and for my career.
And I want to ask you about mentors in a second, because you've mentioned a couple of them. But before we jump onto that, is just kind of a follow-up to this last question is, so you've been in a situation a couple times where you've been evaluating companies. You've been deciding, you know, what was going to be the right place for you, what was going to be the place that you think you could, sort of call your new home. And so what would be, you know, not necessarily going through all the different things, but what would be the top 2 or 3 things that you consider to be the most important when sort of evaluating that or making that decision?
Somebody taught you really well, you know, to ask the great questions.
Somebody.
And so I knew that I would really enjoy this conversation with you because it's another great question. And, you know, we can lay awake nights if we don't have any experience in network marketing and convince ourselves that falling in love with the product is going to ensure our success, or it's a good compensation plan and we can't help but make it. But there really are serious criteria to picking a good company. And I've got 31 years in the business, and you love it when I say this. I've been in the business longer than you've been alive, all right?
I turned 32 this month, so maybe you've got a couple months left.
I know. All right, so you were 8 months old when I got involved in the business, okay?
Yeah.
But it's okay, you were still in diapers, all right? So let me just share this with you, that it is so important to understand that I've seen companies with fantastic products fail, all right? I mean, you think, oh my gosh, how could they fail? That was an unbelievable product. And then I've seen companies with fantastic comp plans fail. But I've also seen companies with terrible products and terrible comp plans succeed on a massively high schedule, on a high level. And you think, holy cow, how do they do that? So it's not just about compensation. It's not just about product. Let me tell you for me, there are 6 criteria. And product and compensation are the least. Because if people can make a fortune with bad comp plans, it tells me that it's really not one of the top, considerations. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's fair because it's true. If I want a bad comp plan, but I believe in the other 4 things, I can go to that comp plan and I can make a lot of money because obviously people did it, right?
Right.
And so that's my rationale. So this is what I look for. I look for 4 other things. Does the company have tools? Do they have great tools? Because if you put a powerful tool into a young person's hand and the tool is so powerful that it does the work, that tool in the right hands, even if it's a young person, can level the playing field. We put a powerful tool in 1995 in a young man's hand. He's 23 years old, and the tool was so powerful that he earned $10 million in 8 years, and the tool helped him become the man and the leader and the success story that he was. So Atlas said if you have a long enough lever, you can lift the world. So never underestimate the power of tools. So they have to have tools, but that's not as important as the next one. The next one is really important to me because people are not duplicable. Pat, I have 45,000 hours in the field. I don't have to think about what I want to say on this interview, right?
Right.
You asked me a question, and I've got 45,000 hours. I've got the ability to respond to the question. So the systems are duplicable. That's why franchises work. So systems are duplicable. That means people are not duplicable. And since people are not duplicable, you better have a system. All right, so to help them become successful. So I evaluate, does the company have systems? If there's a lot of internal fighting in the field and everybody's fighting over the systems, we got problems. And that is not a company, because I do not want my team confused because there's all these different systems going out there, and it's like following somebody that has 6 bills on their cab, right? You have no idea what direction they're going. So
right.
System's more important to me than tools, okay? This is more important because I know that we'll be able to create great tools, but system's more important. But even more important, and this is like a Richter scale important, right? This is a Richter monitor because this is how I'm going up the scale. But more important to me are who in the heck is training the field? Who are the coaches? Who are the people in the field that understand every aspect of the business, and who are the people that are teaching? Because John Maxwell says it the very best of all of them. Leadership, everything rises and falls on leadership, everything. And so if you've got a great team to train your field, I will tell you what, you can have lousy comp plans and you can have lousy products, and you can still make a fortune. But my philosophy is give me great products and give me a great comp plan, give me fantastic tools, give me coaches, and oh my gosh, we are like incredible. It's going to be incredible, right? Because that's one of the values of our business. We provide great products, and it's wonderful. But even more important than the coaches is, my gosh, who is signing that check? Who's signing my
right.
check? Because I'll tell you, bears leave bear tracks, and rabbits leave rabbit tracks, and crooks leave crook tracks. You can have everything in place, and the guy could be a crook. And
right.
if he's a crook and he's going to take all that money, and I had one of our companies, it ultimately the owners absolutely were wolves in sheep's clothing, right? And they destroyed the company, not for the lack. Nothing the field did. It was nothing the leadership did. In the end, their character destroyed the business. So who are you in business with? And so more than anything is who owns this thing? Who is the person that is signing my check? Let me talk to him. Let me evaluate his track record, and then introduce me to his leaders, and show me their systems, introduce me to their tools, and their compensation plan, and their product or last. That's how I evaluate my companies.
Yeah,
so they have
and
to
go ahead.
No, so it meets. I have a very high standard, and so I've never, ever, ever not made money in this business because I don't build a team or choose a company by accident.
Right.
It doesn't happen by accident.
What I think is really interesting is that, and I think you'd probably agree with me on this, is that if you look at what you put as your first criteria and the last criteria, first criteria being who's signing the check, who's running the company, and the last one being the product, still important but least important. Probably most people, I would say, completely inverse that, and they join because they love a product, and they never actually meet the founder or the founders or the executive team until the first convention.
Exactly. They never do anything. They don't make any of the evaluation. They don't go through any. They don't ask the hard questions. They don't even ask one even kind of hard question. They ask,
right.
Their whole belief is, oh my gosh, I love the product. I can, if they just love the product, they will make a fortune. Wrong answer.
Yeah.
And not a very good question.
Right.
Really. Right, so that's my philosophy. So I evaluate numbers, I evaluate performance, I look at track records. I want to make sure that they don't have criminal records. I love the industry. Stop and think about it though. Corporate America, we have people that are in prison from Enron. All right.
Right.
So it's not. Really and truly, there are people that I really love my profession. I edify my profession. I never say anything bad about companies, ever, because if you throw mud at other companies, it looks really bad on our profession. But and trust me, we don't need to do that. So never, ever, ever. I never fling mud. But if you ask me specifically about a company because you want me to join it, I'm going to tell you if that person has a bad rap sheet, and I'll tell you. There are owners of certain companies that I will absolutely, positively not have anything to do with by personal choice based on their character, right? I won't go.
Right.
You can't make me. This is a volunteer sport. I'm not going to go. And so this is what it is that is really important to know, evaluation and knowing how to choose companies.
Yeah. So the one of those points that you hit on, and one thing that I wanted to kind of dive into a little bit more with you is kind of the topic of mentors. I know what a big impact some of your mentors have had in your life. I know that if I look back on my career thus far, and I've had some successes in sales and network marketing and real estate, but at any time that I've had some different successes, I can clearly point you to who was my mentor or mentors in those situations, and I think it was a huge, huge part of me having success. Could you talk a little bit? I wanted to ask you, who are some of the mentors that you've had, kind of how that has had an impact on you, but also sort of how you found them. Like if somebody is just kind of out there and doesn't have a mentor, how do they find a mentor?
It's such an emotional question for me because though I had a work ethic and a desire to succeed, I truly could have become a statistic in this industry. I could have really, really fallen flat on my face and been nothing but a statistic. Oh, she tried it and she failed miserably. And, and that's the truth. I mean, without the power of coaching. And so because my work ethic was so intense and because I understand that I must be a good student, it was apparent that I wanted any venture that I put my hand to make it. I showed up. 80% of success, Pat, in anything, as Woody Allen says, is showing up. So I showed up. I've been in the profession now since my very first convention was a Mary Kay convention. It was 3 months after I got involved in 1983. So that's 31 years ago, right?
Right.
And in 31 years, Pat, I have never missed a convention, right? I've never missed regional meetings. I've never missed weekly trainings and if I'm in town, I'm at those events, right?
Right.
And so it's 80% of my success was showing up and then applying and doing the work because I wanted the cars, I wanted the trips, I wanted the money, I wanted the recognition, I wanted whatever it was as a measure of, that I was doing something that mattered and I was doing something that was creating my future, my family's future, all the things that networking promises. So showing up kind of brings you to the attention of people that are paying attention. And I was very, very, very blessed showing up at these events and learning and being willing to pay for the conventions and being willing to go to the leadership training development programs because I've got a fortune invested in my library. I've got a fortune invested in going to Tony Robbins and Les Brown and Dennis Waitley. And, the list of people that I've seen for leadership development is just a mile long. And every single dime invested was worth the investment because it was like my education. I was getting my education. And
right.
Along the way, I went to a Jim Rohn function. And I was so moved by Jim's material, I made sure to introduce myself to him. And he changed my life. And ultimately, Jim became one of my very best friends and a mentor and somebody who took an active interest in my future. So was that divine providence? I have to say that it's divine providence. But I did stick my hand out, right? I did introduce myself, and I became a very devoted student, and in turn, the relationship became a very powerful and important relationship in my life. So Jim Rohn was one of my very first professional top-tier mentors. I had the same situation with Les Brown. Les Brown was introduced to me by a very good friend. Les was looking for someone that had networking experience and success, and my girlfriend happened to be our mutual stockbrokers. So she says, "Oh my gosh, my girlfriend Cindy Samuelson." So that's how I met Les Brown, and Les became a personal friend and a phenomenal mentor and someone I could really, truly relate with and identify with. And so I'm very blessed in that situation.
And Cindy, one quick point I just want to ask you about, jumping back to Jim Rohn, just on the topic of how to find a mentor. If I'm not, tell me if I'm wrong on the details, but I think you asked him if you could go to work for him.
No, he actually called me and asked me if
he called you. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
He did call me, and he used a very phenomenal approach. He needed a district sales manager for Phoenix, and he asked me if I knew anyone. He said, Cindy, because he knew I was very committed to what I was doing, and he said, Cindy, do you know anybody that would fit the criteria that I'm looking for as a sales manager in the Phoenix area? And I thought, oh my gosh, of course, me.
Right.
And that was, of course, the answer he wanted. That's the answer he wanted, and that's the answer he got.
I love
right?
it.
And so that's how that whole thing happened. But like I said, I put out my hand and said, Jim Rohn, my name is Cindy Samuelson. You have changed my life. And then I proved it. I proved, through the course of my relationship, and I never wanted him to be anything but proud of me. So that was that beginning, right? And then my life was completely and utterly and magnificently transformed by two unbelievable men, Curly Smith and Bob Schmidt. Curly was a profound success in his personal life and in his career, not in network marketing. So I developed a lot of my philosophies from Curly. He's the one who taught me to make sure I got my pilot's license so I could see the world from 35,000 feet and have clear vision from 35,000 feet. But my professional mentor is a man so precious to me, professional mentor, an icon, really iconic in the industry, and ultimately went on to become my best friend. And up until the day he died, we were the best of friends. And he taught me the profession of networking. He taught me that doesn't happen by accident. It happens on purpose and by design, and you must master the skill sets. It takes, 10,000 hours to gain mastery to become a master electrician, Pat. An electrician, it takes 10,000 hours or 7 years. And so it's the same in networking. It takes 10,000 hours of study and application and adjustment and field time and actually building to gain mastery over this business. And I have that times 5, right? I have 40 to 50,000 hours of time in the field over the course of my 31-year career in the field, in actual presentation and development and training and teaching and working time. So that mastery, it's when you are determined that failure is not an option and you show up, you're going to meet the people that are willing to mentor you. And mentors, they don't come beating your door down. They're busy. Right? They're busy. They're not going to beg you.
Yeah.
They're not going to beg you to be successful. But if you ask them for guidance, they will bend over backwards because they want to help you become successful. And that's exactly what happened, and I thank God for my mentors. Every single, all of them, Jim Rohn died in 2009. He was the last. My beloved iconic mentor in networking, incredibly, tragically drowned in 2008. Bob Schmidt, just amazing, and he changed my life. And my beloved father figure, Curly Smith, died in 2000, and so they're all gone. And so my entire life now is about doing for others what my incredible mentors did for me. And that's my mentor story. So never ever underestimate the influence and the power and the reach of a mentor. One profound instruction from them can change your life forever.
So the next piece that I wanted to kind of ask you about is sort of touching on the sort of the thesis of the Miracle Morning, the message that we're putting out there in our book, The Miracle Morning is for the network marketers, is the dramatic impact that simple daily routines can have on somebody's life. And I know that you have, some of these things that you practice, routinely every single day. Could you touch on a little bit about, some of these different things that are a part of your daily routine and maybe the impact that it has had on your success? What does your day look like when you wake up, and where does it go from there every day?
Again, I'm a teacher by profession. That's what I really do tell people. I'm passionate about teaching, and it's such an important role that we play. Whether it's I'm teaching children, in kindergarten, Sunday school, I'm teaching them lessons there, whether I'm teaching a child to tie their shoes, or whether I'm teaching a new business partner the fundamentals and the disciplines to become a successful entrepreneur. So this is really primarily what our business is, and leadership is about teaching others to become successful on whatever is important in their life. And so what I have learned in my life is I am known as a wild woman, and I was a term I coined for myself years ago, and that it had to do with the acronym WEALTHY. Wealthy is part of the joy of network marketing, and whatever wealth is, it can be financial wealth, it can be spiritual wealth, it can be, wealth and everything. So what is wealth like? And then independence, being independent, having the ability to come and go as I please and live life on my terms. And in, loving what it is that I do, love what I do. And the most important of the acronym, and, loving what I do and being loved in return for, obviously, be passionate about what I do. But the most important letter in my acronym of WILD is D. It stands for discipline. And a lot of people think discipline is a four-letter word, and discipline is not a four-letter word. Discipline is a very important part of our success in doing this business, and daily disciplines pay off in massive amounts as a result of getting involved in this business. And so these daily disciplines, I learned a long time ago, it is impossible. It is virtually impossible not to become successful if you get up before dawn every day. So, Pat, the daily disciplines that are required of us make all the difference in how our life will turn out, correct?
Absolutely.
So discipline, and the discipline to do what I knew had to be done in order to be successful, is an absolute criteria, because many people know what they need to do, but they won't do it. They aren't disciplined to do it, and therefore they fail in this business. And so when I understand that it's like a muscle that we use. If we use it, it's going to become stronger. And so the disciplines to become successful are vital to your success. I mean, you have to be able to do it. So people are disciplined externally. They know that if they don't go to work, the external discipline is coming at them, that they will lose their job. So
right.
They will get up and they'll get showered and they'll get in their cars and they'll commute because externally somebody is disciplining them, right?
Right.
And so they do it. So that's external discipline. But what I'm looking for in cultivating in me and in cultivating in people that want to become successful is somebody that has the internal discipline to get up and do it, whatever needs to be done to build their business, if nobody else is demanding that they do it. It's the internal discipline that has to be created to become successful in this business. And so internal discipline can start with something as simple as spending 1 hour a day, getting up an hour earlier or going to bed an hour later, and using that as the golden hour Stephen Covey calls it sharpening the saw. You know, if you go out to cut down a tree and you take a hammer, you can actually cut down this tree in about 30 days by hitting it with a hammer. Or you can take a very sharp saw and you can cut it down in about 5 minutes. Right? So that's the difference in that golden hour, that hour that you're using the sharpener of the saw. So if you want a better marriage, if you want better kids, if you want a better financial portfolio, if you want to become a better business entrepreneur, the book has already been written on that, whatever it is that you want. And so you study for an hour a day, 7 days a week, for the rest of your life, whatever it is that you want to become. And if you are unwilling to start with something like that, to develop that discipline, it's going to be very hard for you to develop the other disciplines, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that is the most important thing I can tell you about the importance of habits. And then that means that leads to other great habits and other great habits. Like, you know, I learned from, you know, it's so important to floss your teeth. Well, I mean, really? I mean, like I learned from Jim, only floss the teeth you want to keep. All right? So flossing your teeth is a daily discipline. Picking up the phone call and making 5 phone calls before you go do something else that is, you know, like unload the dishwasher or go wash the car, people will put the most important things behind washing the car. They'll say, oh, I'll make the 5 phone calls after I wash the car. No, washing the car is an avoidance mechanism to keep from making the 5 phone calls. The 5 phone calls are going to be the things that make you the fortune in this business. Do the 5 phone calls and then wash the car.
Yeah.
Right? Make the 5 phone calls first. And that's a discipline, Pat. Those are the things that are absolutely phenomenally mandatory. And so you can't become wealthy. You can't have the independence and the freedom to go wherever you want. You know, you can't really love and be passionate about what you're doing and be loved in return as a result of the fruits of your labor without the discipline. All right, hard to be wild without the discipline to do it.
Exactly. And I know one of those disciplines, just to ask you about one of them, is, and I know that Jim Rohn was always really big on journaling, and that was something that you had jotted down as a daily discipline that you try to incorporate as well. What kind of benefit? Why journal?
Oh, my goodness gracious. Well, you know, I journal a lot, and a lot of my journaling I share publicly inside of my training organizations, because that's a beautiful thing about the ability now with things like, you know, Yahoo groups and Facebook especially is a place for me to write and journal, because people really and truly think they think, Pat. They think they think. But the reality is, if you can't put your thinking on paper, you don't know what you think, right? The average human being has 50,000 thoughts a day that go through their head. I mean, from I need to get up at 5:30, I've got to shower, I've got to brush my teeth, this is what I want to wear, oh my God, I don't have any milk in the house, oh my God. A list of things that are just going through their mind. And a lot of the things that they're thinking about are pretty negative things. And, you know, they don't have enough money, they're unhappily married, the kid's giving them all kinds of trouble, they've got a parent that's dying, and life just becomes overwhelming. So of the 50,000 thoughts that the average person have, remember, some people have more and some people have less, but the average is 50,000. About 10% of them are on a loop in their head. And in that loop, I mean, trust me, what's on that loop isn't that I'm good enough, I'm excited, I'm happy, I'm over the top with enthusiasm, nothing's going to get me down, etc. They're thinking I'm a loser, I don't have any money, this is my marriage, I'll never get out of this miserable marriage. And so that's what they're thinking, really.
Yeah. That's
the bottom line. And what they're thinking about, they're magnetizing, and they're actually creating the circumstances to make them right.
Right.
Right? And so the importance of journaling is it's the ability to know what you think and get clarity on what you want. and what direction you're going to. And I do my best thinking on paper. I do my best thinking on paper. And so that daily discipline, and I have, I have journals filled of my thinking, and I have absolutely thousands and thousands of trainings posted in my training site that through my career, so that everybody knows exactly what I think. But more importantly, I know exactly what I think.
Right.
And journaling allows you to be able to express accurately what you think. So
I love it.
if you don't journal, Jim Rohn journals. Do you have any doubt that Jim Rohn knew what he was thinking about?
Oh my gosh.
Do you think he figured it out on paper, or did he just kind of make it up in front of the podium?
Oh yeah, years of journaling and turning the pages and pages and pages of wisdom into 2 sentences, of years. I'm sure.
And so, if it was good enough for Jim, Pat, it's good enough for me. All right.
Yeah, no doubt.
All I can say. Jim said the only thing that we're going to leave is value to our children. Our children don't want our furniture. They don't want our clothes. My kids look at me and go, Mom, my gosh, where am I going to put this stuff? Right? But what they want, Pat, is they want the pictures, and they want our libraries, and they want our journals. Our journals will let my children and let my grandchildren know exactly what my life meant, and they will serve as my testament that I was here and about what mattered to me. Right. And so the most valuable thing I can leave them are those 3 things: my pictures, my library, and my journals.
I love it.
And so that's what I hope that they're begging for, and that everything else gets donated or thrown in the trash. And so that's really my thinking.
I love it. It's fantastic information. And I have just, I think maybe just 2 other questions that I wanted to run past you. But this next one is the question that I've been most excited to ask you in this whole interview. And even, before we even jumped on here, is that this is something that is one of my favorite things that I learned from you over the years, and that you had learned from one of your mentors, and that I've passed on to many people as well, is the wealth formula. and it just is, every time you go over that with people that haven't heard it, it just is like a light bulb goes on and a hand kind of smacks them across the face at the same time. And,
isn't that amazing? It's amazing.
And so I wanted to see if you could share with everybody that is tuning into this, if you could give us the rundown on the wealth formula.
Oh, Patrick, I love you because I live to teach people, as you know, and mountains of material to write about and to share. The wealth formula is one of my favorites. I was taught the wealth formula by my beloved father figure and mentor, Curly Smith, in 1991. And Curly, when he died, he grew up very, very poor in the Dust Bowl of Oklahoma. He was born before the Depression, and he grew up in the Depression. And he, every night before he went to bed, until he was 19, he went to bed hungry. And with his first paycheck at the age of 19, he bought a steak dinner, and he vowed that he'd never be hungry again. And, there are a lot of people in the world that can relate with that kind of story. So he's greatest generation. And at age 34, he read a book called Think and Grow Rich, and he devoured it. He wanted a better life, and he found this book, and he read the book, and he earned his first $1 million when he was 54. And when he died at age 78, he'd been mentoring me for about 10 years at that point. I think he was about 68 when he became my mentor. But he died at age 78, and he left enough wealth to last 3 generations, right? And he left behind a daughter who has no children. And he didn't leave any life insurance. He left assets that would last for 3 generations. And so and he was just an amazing human being. I absolutely loved him. And Pat, you never got a chance to meet him. He was already gone by the time he came in my life. But through me, you know him. And I talk about Curly every day, and I think about Curly every day, and his presence is with me every day, and I think about the wealth formula every single day. I've thought about it for now. It's 1991, February of 91 is when he taught it to me, and here we are 23 years later, and we're still talking about it. I learned it. I earned $1 million in 6 years after I learned the wealth formula, and I teach it to everybody that will listen. And the reality is that we are equal in only two ways. And for those that are agnostic or that don't believe in God, even an atheist believes in God in a foxhole. And so even an atheist believes. So let me just share with you that we're equal in two ways. We're equal in the eyes of God, and we're equal in how much time we're given. And if I ask a group of people how many hours are there in a day, people look at me and they just like, this is the wealth formula. They'll roll their eyes and go, oh my gosh, that's easy, 24 times 7. But that's not the question. That's not the answer to my question. My question is, how many hours are there in the week? And people will say, well, there's like 60. Somebody said to me last week, there's 350 hours in the week. And the reality is most people don't know. The majority of people do not know the answer to the question. I said 40, and Curly looked at me and I said, well, Curly, that's easy. There's 40 hours in the week. And he stood up, Pat, with such force, and he said, young lady, and he pointed at me, that is why you're broke. And in 1991, I was broke. I was there to have him teach me how to become wealthy. And, being broke is a temporary condition, Pat. Being poor is a disease. So being broke was temporary, and it's nothing to be ashamed to admit. And so I was like, oh, my gosh. I was, like, rattled. And he said, young lady, that is the wrong answer, and that's why you're broke. He said there was 168 hours in the week. And when I taught you this, Pat, you've probably thought about the wealth formula every day since I taught it to you, haven't you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So you know that that's the foundation for wealth. We're equal in the eyes of God, and we're equal in how much time we're given. So none of us, if Donald Trump could buy your time, Pat, and if he could buy my time, he would. He wouldn't care how much we charged him for it. He'd buy it. But he can't, right? No matter how much money he offers us for our time, we can't trade it for dollars, right? We can't sell it. It's ours. Everybody has the same. It's 168 hours in a week. And the difference in how your life turns out is what you do with those 168 hours. And a lot of people spend their life and don't even know this. And it's no wonder that 95% of the people in the world work for the 5% that are wealthy, right?
Right.
Because they trade their precious time for minimum wage, right?
Yep.
And it's incredibly unfortunate. And so what I teach people is the value of time. So the first thing we're going to address is sleep. We need to sleep. We have to rest. It's hard to do well if you don't feel well, and it's hard to feel well if you don't get enough rest. So we're going to give you 7 days a week, give you 8 hours of sleep a night, 56 hours. And some people it's like, oh, my gosh, I died and went to heaven. Some people it might be a little too much sleep. Some people will be they need more sleep. So, but the healthy life is 8 hours. So let's give you 8 hours, 56 hours of sleep a week. Good. That's kind of the foundation. The next thing is most of us aren't born independently wealthy, so we have to work for a living. And so by working for a living is an honorable thing. We're taking our precious time and we're trading it for dollars. We're trading it for wages. So if we determine that we're worth minimum wage we should only be debating minimum wage for children, because that's what it should be. Minimum wage should be a starting point for children in the workforce. We shouldn't be raising a family. We shouldn't be debating whether a family can live on minimum wage, a family of 4. Insane. And but minimum wage, if you want to start there, if you want to become a doctor, if you want to become a plumber, if you want to become an attorney, whatever you can charge per hour. Some attorneys are very, very expensive per hour, and some plumbers are even more expensive than attorneys, all right? So we're trading our time for dollars, and that is okay. It's honorable, and it takes care of our family, feeds our family, and that's what we do with it. So we have to work. And then the next thing that we need to do is we need to have a life. After sleeping and after working, providing, getting the rest and then being able to provide, food, clothing, and shelter, we need a life. And, all work and no play makes for a pretty bad life. And so I'm going to give you a life. So for and the working, as I was going back to the wealth formula, 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, that's a 40-hour week. So there's your 40 hours. And so by the way, anything that you do with your employer, if you're working more than 40 hours, I mean, think about it. You put in 10 hours of overtime, and they might even give you time and a half. But your employer doesn't work for wages. If you're working for somebody other than yourself, let's say if it's anybody other than you, whether I don't care what company you're working for, small, privately owned, or whatever, if you're working for anybody else but you, you're working for Charlie Brown. And so Charlie Brown is anybody but you. And so Charlie Brown is paying you for your time. You're trading time for dollars. Charlie Brown's working for profit. He's willing to give you his money so that he can make a profit because he's working for profit. So that's the story of life, and that's the story of why 95% of people are broke and working for somebody else, right? It's very
Absolutely.
important. So the third thing is I need to give you a life. Bottom line is, the average father in the United States spends 8 minutes in eye-to-eye contact with his child. 8 minutes a day in eye-to-eye contact with his child. I just can't even imagine that. But the reality is I want you to have a life. I want you to spend time with your kids. I want you to spend time with your significant other. I want you to be able to go skiing and have fun and play, go out to dinner, and have a life every single gosh darn day. And, just take care of your regular business. So 7 days a week, I'm going to give you 6 hours a day to have a life. And so 6 times 7, that is 42 hours in the week. 42 hours. So now we've taken care of sleep, work, and play. And so what does it add up to? If you add it all up, Pat, as you know, it adds up to 100. And how many hours, Pat?
138.
138. How many hours are there in a week, Pat?
168.
Where do you think people spend the difference? Where are they spending the 30 hours, Pat?
In front of the TV.
That's exactly right. Or surfing the internet, right?
Oh, yeah, sure. In front of the internet, on their phone, in front of a screen.
Activity. Exactly. And I've had people tell me in a very manner that says, well, listen, I don't watch TV and I don't spend any time on the internet. And, I'm telling them the wealth formula, and I go, well, obviously, you must be spending it knitting because you're not wealthy. All right? Because the reality is, if you've got these 30 hours, you must be doing it you must be wasting it on something.
Right.
All right? You're wasting it on something that isn't creating a better life for you. So the wealth formula is only for people that want to be able to have a better life. Fair enough?
Absolutely, and I love it. That's the reaction whenever you talk about that. You give people 8 hours a day to sleep, 40 hours a week to work, and 6 hours a day to live their life and have fun and be with their family. And people are usually amazed at that number. And then there's still 30 hours left over. It absolutely floors people all the time.
Every single time, and it does.
Yep.
And so now, Pat, what I do is I teach people. Here's the first thing I teach them. Okay, blow up your television. All right, blow it up for just a year. Give me 1 year so that you can understand the discipline that it's going to take for you to be able to create the life of your dreams. All right, blow it up for 3 years. Blow it up for 5 years. Just get rid of whatever it is that you're wasting your time on because, it's later than you think. It's later than you think. And people are going to be retiring, and their money will run out long before they will. They will end up the last years of their life. The women over age 65, 72% of women over age 65 will have nothing but their Social Security check to live on, which the average for a woman over the age of 65 will retire on about $700 a month in Social Security. Right? That's their retirement plan.
Right.
I don't know about you, Pat, but that's not a very good retirement plan in my book.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right? So it's later than you think. So blow up the TV. That's the first thing I say. Just get rid of it. And, if social media isn't making you money, if you're not using it as a way to cultivate, develop, teach, communicate, train, promote your program, get off of Facebook. All right? Get off of it. Social media, if you're not using it as a way for you to become Charlie Brown and become master of your own fate and creator of your own profit. So I take the 30 hours, Pat, and I teach my team how to become successful. The first thing, they're going to develop the discipline on a daily discipline. It's called the golden hour.
Yep.
Wake up an hour earlier or go to bed an hour later and start with Think and Grow Rich. That's Jim Rohn did it, Bob Schmidt did it, Curly Smith did it. I figured if it was good enough for them, it's still the premier book in the industry of success. Written,
no doubt.
100 years ago, and it's still the premier book.
And available for free if you just Google it online.
Yeah, it's free. So start there. All right, an hour in the morning or an hour in the evening. And my suggestion, I can't suggest it to you because you are a night owl, right? But get up an hour early, and so Pat, you can read it before you go to sleep. But you did
Perfect.
it. You do that stuff, right?
Oh yeah.
Right. So the important thing is spend an hour a day sharpening your saw. Develop that discipline. So that's 7 hours out of the 30 that you've used to develop every day, by the way. Not once in a while, not inconsistently, not 7 hours all at one time, but 7 hours every day. I mean, an hour a day every week, 7 hours a week, every week, week in, week out for the rest of your life, right? 7 hours a week. And when you become financially independent, you'll find that you want to spend 2 or 3 hours sharpening your saw. Isn't that amazing? Because you have the time and the freedom to do it. It's like, oh, you can't get enough of it. It's a wonderful way to live. And so sharpen your saw every day. And then if you take the 7 hours from the 30, you still have 23 hours to learn the skill sets to create wealth. Because wealth isn't made in 40 hours a week. Obviously, people aren't wealthy. They're working 40 hours. They're working for, they traded their time for dollars. They're struggling paycheck to paycheck. But that extra 30 hours is where wealth is made. And if you're willing to use those 30 hours, wealth is created in everything over 40, Pat. Everything over 40. So you and I are professional networkers, right? We put in 40 hours a week. We're putting it in for wealth, aren't we?
Right.
And then,
absolutely.
And then we're taking all the other 30 and we're putting that on top of it, right?
Absolutely.
And then we're stealing from our sleep, right? Have you ever stolen from your sleep, Pat, to put it into your business?
Last night.
I mean, I'm operating on 4.5 hours of sleep a day. I'm so excited about what I'm doing right now. I can't flip and sleep.
Right.
All right, because I'm stealing from my sleep because the work is so exciting, right? It doesn't feel like work. It's like, oh, my gosh, how soon can I go back? I can't call anybody right now. It's 1 o'clock in the morning, So I call other people that are as excited as me, and I talk to them. Or I call somebody that's international, and I talk to them.
Right.
Because I'm so excited. So it's a fantastic way to live, and you're even sneaking time from your life because you're like, I really, 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 really love you, baby, but I really got to go do this, right? So but everything in balance. But you're only working like this for a while, for a short while, and investing it into your future, and it creates a life that you've always dreamed of. And so everybody's got the time. When somebody tells me, oh, I don't have any time, I think, oh, my gosh, honey, you got all the time you're going to get.
Right. Yep.
And
exactly.
You need somebody to teach you the disciplines to get you to get a hold of your life. Because it's the only one you've got. And and we're equal in only two ways, in the eyes of God and in how much time we're given. So when you understand that, and like I said, I understand it, and I've lived it now for 23 years, and it's turned into multiple millions of dollars in a home-based business. So what a great time I had with you today, Mr. Petrini.
I know. I've had a great time as well. I'm so excited for everybody, the many, many people that will be hearing this that will be able to hear that for the first time. And so it's just been a great content. I can't wait for us to put this out there for everybody. The last thing I wanted to ask you that I thought would be a perfect way to end on is, I think, just a relatively short question, but it's one of the things that I think that is one of your greatest strengths from my perspective, and something that you had mentioned previously is you kind of mentioned that you at one point you actually kind of learned to have more of a sense of humor and to deliver sincere compliments to people, and and at this point, as long as I've known you, it's never looked like a learned skill. It looks like you're a natural, because every time you're interacting with people, you always leave somebody feeling. You always leave them better than you found them. You always leave them like walking on air, feeling like just excited and having fun. And you actually said that was kind of something that you've learned over the years. So I just wanted to see if you had any comments on that, of kind of where you learned that, or how you developed that.
I had no idea how awesome and how much you would touch me with this interview, Pat, and thank you. That you would isolate that as my superior skill set means the world to me, and it means the world to me for a reason. I'm the oldest of 5 children, pretty difficult lifestyle, and the oldest is always pretty responsible and pretty much doesn't have a sense of humor. And that was definitely me. And by the time you got down to my baby brother, he was 30 years old when we lost him to cancer. By the time you got down to my brother was hilarious, right? He was funny, and he could just, he had a fantastic sense of humor, and he was just a joy to be around. So that was the extremes between birth orders and everything in our life. And so in wanting to become rich in my family, I was the first to become $1 million income earner, and the first business owner, and the first to become a multi-million-dollar income earner. And my brothers and sisters have all followed in my path. And so they've gone on to have great and successful careers too, but I was the least fun of the whole group. I was really, really serious. And I was really, when I got involved in networking, it wasn't fun. I wasn't humorous. I was a slave driver. And in networking, it's a volunteer sport, and nobody gets involved in networking to be bossed around and told what to do. And being the older sister, and being, having something to prove, and having a financial hardship that meant I needed the money. I didn't just want the money, but I needed the money in 1988. I left to my own resources without a coach. I was belligerent, and I was demanding, and I was intense, and I was just intimidating, and it was just incredible. It's actually, my story is actually documented in one of Richard Koh's books, The Way to Build Your Business. Fantastic story, and I was interviewed for it, and I was very pleased because he actually documents that period of my life. And I was very blessed in that I had one of my top producers that I just overstepped my boundary. She had put up with me for 18 months of, pushing, demanding, because this is networking, especially as a volunteer sport, and people don't have to put up with this stuff. And she just looked at me one day and she says, drop dead. And you don't ever have the right to talk to me this way again, and don't bother me. And wow, I cried for 5 months. I could barely get out of bed for 5 months because she was the only person that had the courage to tell me that. And she used an expletive in it too. That made it even more powerful. And so that was back in, it had to be 1990, 20 some odd years ago. And so I would have been in my 30s at that time. And it was one of the most powerful lessons. And about the same time, Pat, that beloved brother of mine was dying. And it was devastating to our whole family. So nothing is working right in my life. My career isn't working right. My relationships with people aren't working right. And that gal that told me to drop dead was one of my top producers in my organization. And so it was just a heartbreaking series of things. And so major lesson for me. And so I had to learn the skill sets to be good with people. And I love people, but I'm not their boss. I am not there to find them doing things wrong and to criticize them. I'm there to find them doing things right and to applaud them. And unless I'm asked for my opinion, unless I'm asked for guidance, I do not lecture, I do not criticize, I do not point out. And if you ask me, I can help you make the adjustments, but I found that to offer people guidance that is unsolicited is unwelcomed, right? So these are all skill sets that I had to learn. And my desire was to become the best possible coach, friend, business partner, daughter, person, entrepreneur that I could become in all areas of my life. And so that was my journey. And so I learned the skill sets. I read the books. I learned to win friends and influence people. I learned to put people's needs first. I learned to applaud and to lift up and to lead people better than I found them. And it took me a long time. But the thing that was the most important thing for me to learn, I learned from my brother. And that's that even in his death, even in dying, and it was a painful death, he made us laugh as we stood around his bed. And as he was dying, as he lay there dying, he could make us laugh. And he never complained. He never whined. And he was funny. And so I learned from him how to develop a keen sense of humor, and it changed my life. And so even a sense of humor can be developed. And you have to study. You have to study, and you have to learn, and you have to be willing. And to make people laugh is a very powerful, it raises their spirits, it makes them open, it makes them feel better, and leaving them better than you found them is a wonderful way to live. And so those are the things that I've had to work very hard on in my career. So it didn't come easy.
Yep.
Like I said, you'll love Richard Poe's story in chapter 12 of the book, the network marketer way to build your business phase 4, and it documents the journey from being a total selfish clod to becoming a leader that works and develops her style on compassion and tenderness and leadership, right?
Yep.
And so that's my journey. That's been my life's work, and that's why I love networking so much. It forces us to become a better person. It forces us to become the person that we've always dreamed of becoming.
Well, Cindy, I so appreciate you being on here and participating in this project. I think that there's just so much great content that we covered here that I just can't wait to put out there for people. So thanks
Pat.
again for playing a role in my life and being part of this project with us.
It's been a joy. I love you. Take care, and I'll see you at the top.
Okay, sounds great. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in.
Bye-bye.
Hey, this is Pat Petrini again, and just to wrap up really quickly, I just want to remind you that if you liked this interview, we've got a whole bunch more. If you go to our website, it's tmm4networkmarketers.com. That's TMM, like the Miracle Morning, FOR, networkmarketers.com. And, of course, if you haven't checked out the book yet, you can go to, first off, you get 2 free chapters of the book at tmm4networkmarketers.com. And then, of course, if you want to get the book, go to Amazon and just search for The Miracle Morning for networkmarketers.com, and you can get it paperback, Kindle, whatever. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you really enjoy the rest of the content that we've made available for you. Thanks a lot. Again, my name is Pat Petrini, and I'll see you on the next interview.